Star Wars video games are going to be changing for the better. Now, Ubisoft announced in cooperation with Lucasfilm Games that they're going to be making an open world Star Wars game. Now, there's a lot of things that go into this. We all know the shit stain that has been Star Wars video games with its exclusivity with EA. Now, a lot of people are saying, well, Ubisoft isn't any better. This is not really about Ubisoft. This is about what this means. Because what is going to happen is that when the exclusivity deal runs up in 2023, other studios, other publishers, other developers are going to be able to work on Star Wars games, which I think is a great thing. It's going to open up Star Wars to a multitude of different things, just like it was back in the heyday of LucasArts and, like the mid-2000s, where you had so many different types of games, whether it was RPGs, MMOs, first-person shooters, tactical shooters, strategy-based games, all of these different things being produced as Star Wars games. And that's really what I think they want to get back into. What is you guys' take on all of this? Start with Lethal.
Oh, boy. Well, I'm very black-pilled when it comes to Star Wars. Like, I've gotten rid of most of my Star Wars stuff. I've thrown out my copies of the movies. I'm fucking done with Star Wars, man. And I say that as a long-time EU guy. But for Star Wars fans, this news, I don't see a downside to it. I really don't see it. I mean, you're getting a variety of different games for once, which is very similar to how LucasArts used to do it. You get a shooter, you get an RPG, whatever it may be. And I get the criticism on Ubisoft. All their open world games are very much the same type of thing, but they're kind of good at what they're doing. And, I think it'll be good for Star Wars fans to have a variety of games. And I think even the most out of touch EA defenders will still think that's a very good thing. I don't see a downside to any of it.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I see too. It's the fact that they are going to. It's EA with almost 8 years with this license has put out Battlefront 2, Jedi Fallen Order, which is probably the bright spot, and then Star Wars Squadrons, which isn't even really a full AAA game. That's it. Well. And I don't give a fuck about mobile games.
Well, Galaxy of Heroes games make bank.
Yeah, it makes bank. That's what Jeremy's playing mobile Call of Duty. I'll leave that to him. But as far as what everyone's expecting from Star Wars games, that's it. And we expected more out of EA with their multitude of different studios that could have been doing all these things. And it was very clear that EA didn't even once they had the personnel changeover, the people that are in charge of EA now, they almost don't even want this. They don't know what to do with it. So it's good that it's ending and other people are going to get to do things. What do you think, Jeremy?
Yeah, no, I was going to make that point about how, we've had, Lucasfilm, Disney, they shut down LucasArts, and EA's had this access for this long, and we've gotten really nothing. I mean, there's no, Jedi Fallen Order is a really good game. Very happy about that. But I think that after years and years and years of disappointing games, and again, even though I like the Battlefront games, Battlefront 2015 to 2017, I can easily admit that those were very disappointing games to a lot of people. They didn't do a good job. The first Battlefront game didn't even have a fucking campaign. A lot of that was because Disney was rushing them to get the game out before The Force Awakens released because they wanted to benefit from all of that hype. That was a really disappointing game because it's one thing, if you go back to Titanfall, the first Titanfall game didn't have a real campaign. They kind of justified that it had a campaign with the multiplayer aspect. It's not a campaign.
Radio chatter during the multiplayer is the campaign.
Yeah, it's fucking terrible. But the point is that's not really a pre-existing world that you went into it going, oh, I'm so disappointed because there's not a campaign here. With Star Wars, with that first Battlefront game, that was an incredible looking game at the time. And it still is a really good looking game. Very authentic to Star Wars, really cool, had no story. And you're just like, how the fuck can you release a Star Wars game with no story? It's really disappointing. Then Battlefront 2 comes out. And you're like, oh, got a campaign. It's going to be fucking awesome. You got all the era Star Wars. Yeah, shitty campaign. Very shitty campaign. And it's just been botch after botch after botch. And it's just been very disappointing. When you look back on that era of LucasArts and all of those incredible games, and there was just so much opportunity for them to do so much with the video game side of things, and they have really screwed it up. So now that we're into a situation where a lot of different hands can be in the pot and you can get a lot of different perspectives, I think that's very good for everyone. And Ubisoft working on an open world Star Wars game on the premise sounds really good. It doesn't mean it's going to be good. It could be a clusterfuck. It could be bad, but at least there's a level of excitement, I think, for a lot of people, and rightfully so.
I think even if you said this game is going to be the Division 2 just Star Wars skin, which I think is probably what it's likely going to be.
Maybe, yeah.
Do you think so, Mark? Like, even if it was just that, I think that's going to make a lot of people happy because it finally does give people like a fucking open world looter shooter Star Wars. Now, what they can do with the story, anything like that, is yet to be seen. We don't know anything about this Ubisoft game yet.
That's what I'd be worried about, because
Right.
The stories in the Division are extremely forgettable. I've played both Division games and probably put maybe about 200 hours into the original one, and probably close to 50 into the second one. I cannot tell you the name of a single character in the Division. There are characters. You talk to people and you get quests. I don't remember anybody's name because like those stories are in one ear, out the other. The premise for Division was kind of cool. Like the idea that on Black Friday there was a virus put on money that basically turned New York into like a post-apocalyptic wasteland. It's cool. Yeah, that's kind of neat, but they don't really do anything with it. And then like but maybe would be like, oh, but if they get some good Star Wars writers to write a good story, then maybe, but like they haven't been doing that for the games really. Like Jedi Fallen Order story was okay, but like Battlefront, if they have Ubisoft Massive will not benefit from a Mitch Dyer script, is what I'm trying to say.
Mitch Dyer is an EA employee. Like he
works
on,
true, yeah.
he works on Star Wars, but he is like EA is his like place of business.
I'm saying if they contracted anyone else from like the Lucasfilm story group, I don't like even like I don't think Mandalorian's well written. I think it has a lot of good stuff in it. There's a lot of good moments, and I think it's probably one of the better things Disney Star Wars has done. But I don't think that it's like a tightly written show. So even if you told me that they have the best writers from Lucasfilm going over to Ubisoft Massive to help the Division guys write the script for this game, I'm just like, I don't see this game having a good story under any circumstances.
Well, I've seen a lot of people say that that's not how it works, and that's not how it will work. So how it will work is that they are going to be like, hey, we're opening it up. You know, we know that, hey, Ubisoft, you guys are known for making open world games. A lot of people fucking hate you, but you make open world games and you put out a lot of open world games. Are you interested in doing a Star Wars open world game? Yes. Ubisoft is going to put together a pitch for the story and all of that shit. And then they'll come to Lucasfilm and they'll work out, like, then they will bounce it off the Lucasfilm story group. And then the story group will be like, well, that really wouldn't make much sense. But if you did this, maybe you could fit it into canon. They're not very good at their job.
Shave half of that female character's head right now.
Yeah, sure. But it wouldn't be like the story group doesn't write anything, first of all. And then secondly, you know, they're
just like fact checkers.
Yes, that is what they would be doing. And that's how it was at LucasArts too. They're like, hey, we're interested in making this type of a game. You farm it out. Somebody comes with a story. They work with it, see if it makes sense. George Lucas had final cut on like, hey, is this okay if we make this game? No, I don't want to make a game about fucking dogs fucking each other. Dave Filoni, go away. You know, like kind of like
but
that.
But the Force Wolves they're the key to all this.
Right.
But yeah, no, like just I guess going back to my thoughts on it, I think that Massive they're really good at cover shooting mechanics. I think that the mechanics in Division 2 in particular are very, very solid. I think they've got a bit of an issue with end game content ever holding my attention, because that was sort of the thing. Like Division, I was really given the original one, given a really hard try to like dive into it and like play the raids and stuff. I think they were calling them incursions, and just none of it was any good. So I think if that same team is making an open world like story based game, which I think are the words they used, right? Like,
say that again.
Did they say open world story based game?
Yes.
They didn't specifically say single player, but it sounded to me like that it was primarily going to be a single player game, not like a Division style looter shooter. I think it could be really good because, especially if you're playing as like a bounty hunter or something, if they make this like the Mandalorian game, then
a lot of speculation.
I think that, well, yeah, I mean there is, but I'm saying that I know that as I think Carl Bennett just said in chat, Star Wars 1313, they kind of already have the framework for, so maybe they're even using that story. Again, speculation, but they can do third person shooter with cover mechanics very well. And I think if they stick to that and take out the looter shooter aspects of the Division and the gear grind and the end game content, remove those elements and somehow miraculously get a decent story, that it could be really solid. But like with anything, don't get your hopes up too high when at this point it's probably at the most concept art. Like we don't really know anything about this game other than the studio and the license. But overall, though, I think that the license opening up from being just EA exclusive to being able to be licensed out to other companies is nothing but a good thing. Like looking at the NFL would be the only place you'd have to go to see what happens to a franchise when exclusive license deals are struck that make money so they don't ever finish, and like the teams behind it just get lazy.
Yeah, and I think like regardless of how you feel about Ubisoft, like that it almost doesn't even matter. That is the first game that was announced, but it's really the principle of everything. And the fact that Lucasfilm Games came forward and said, we're going to be working with a ton of different developers. And that to me means they're focusing on getting back to what they did before, multiple different types of games for everybody who likes to play shit, because there's some people that just don't like first-person shooters. There's some people that just don't like strategy games, RPGs. So like to continue to develop more Star Wars games is a good thing. Will they be able to execute it is the question everyone's asking, right? Will they be able to tell compelling stories that make sense with canon and all of these things? That's the questions I have that I don't think they'll be able to succeed in. But overall, the idea of this going forward, I think it's a good thing.
We need a Star Wars kart racer. Is what we need.
They got Christopher Avalon to come back from his Me Too stricken obscurity and just ghost write one of the games. I think would probably work out all right.
Yeah, I'd be down with that. Bring back Drew Karpyshyn. Well,
yeah, Drew Karpyshyn.
Everyone's like KOTOR 3. I hate to break it to you guys. SWOTOR, the Jedi Knight line from Star Wars: The Old Republic, is KOTOR 3. I'm sorry. I know people don't want to hear that, but it's the truth. It is.
I think though, then like you could say KOTOR, like they want a single player Knights of the Old Republic game, but I think that the trick there is like who's developing it, because I don't think you want BioWare to do it. Like, modern BioWare, I don't think is up to the task of making a Star Wars game that is going to deliver for you on what you want. I actually think that I guess from context of the game I played this year, Larian, who's making a sequel to another BioWare game, they're making Baldur's Gate 3. Mm-hmm. They could probably do an Knights of the Old Republic game very well. But I mean, again, that's like, and it's theoretically possible now that the license isn't exclusive. But I think any of that happening is several years down the road, and I honestly don't think they're doing anything labeled Knights of the Old Republic while the High Republic's still kicking around.
Nope.
Because I think they want you to think of that as like, oh, this is the real Knights of the Old Republic.